I'm pleased to welcome back to the program Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. She is an attorney, an expert on immigration. Kate, thanks as always for being with us. We appreciate it.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
Let me begin with some of the pushback that we may be getting from Democratic officials both on the state and local level when it comes to this mass deportation. What can local officials do, and what is the authority of the federal government when it comes to illegal immigrants?
Well, there's different ways that the localities can resist cooperation. One of those ways is when someone is booked for a local crime, maybe driving without a license, is whether the local county, the sheriff, will turn over those people to the hands of immigration. And then there's a second layer when we're talking about essentially enlisting local law enforcement agents to become immigration enforcers and ordering them to do things like raids or traffic stops. And it can get rather complicated, all of this. There's, cooperative agreements under 287G, but then if localities resist, then they'll face consequences of the federal government, in various ways. And then there's state level involvement. I'm in Texas, and we have, of course, cooperation at the state level with the governor and the federal government, but our law that is a new law, it's called SB4, creating a state-level crime for illegal entry, is caught up in the federal court. But the Biden administration is the plaintiff in that lawsuit, the main plaintiff, and so at the change of administration, we're probably going to see statewide in Texas, for example, lots of local law enforcement cooperation.
So, Kate, let's take a step back and just talk about the logistics of how this would work. Let's first of all talk about how many illegal immigrants are in the U.S. Do you have an estimate? Do we have a number?
No one really knows. The number that's thrown around is somewhere between 11 and 20 million people.
So the one number that we are seeing from experts is the price tag of this could be upwards of $80 billion just in the first year. So how would this work?
So I think that the way they're going to go about doing this, and I think that they are going to go about doing this, at least to start, is the first step is expanding what's called expedited removal, which means that anyone who's in the country for less than 2 years can get picked up and deported essentially without due process rights. They don't have a lawyer. They don't go before a judge. There's very, very limited appeal. And so that first round will be, if they can, attempt to find recent arrivals. Then I think they're going to, or deport people who have longer than 2 years but can't prove it, because it's a discretionary decision in the moment with the officer. So that's one of the things I'm sharing with the immigrant community, is if you've been here longer than 2 years, carry proof of that on you at all times. But we're also going to see, worksite raids. In some places we've seen just regular traffic stops. And then, of course, anyone who already has some interaction with law enforcement or immigration, and they have maybe an outstanding order of removal or an arrest warrant, that is going to be the low-hanging fruit, of course, that they're going to go after immediately.
And what about those who are here, the so-called dreamers that came here with their parents, no other country but the United States? Could they be going back to their native country, a nation that they may not even be familiar with? They may not even speak the language.
Yes. I mean, theoretically, under the law, anyone who's been here for longer than 2 years can't just be summarily deported without the right to a hearing. So what that should look like, if the Trump administration were following the laws, they might cancel DACA or pick someone up who has been here longer than 2 years and place them into removal proceedings. But we know that the Trump administration has already threatened to use the Alien Invasion Act of 1798 to declare that we are at war with the nations from where these immigrants are, and then, just execute deportation orders against them. And so probably, in my guess, what we'll see is people who actually have the right to defend themselves deported without due process, and the Trump administration will get as many of those out as they can, and somebody will have to bring a lawsuit, which will result in an injunction. But the concern that I have, and I think we all should have, is that many, many families will be caught up in this. I mean, we all remember the family separations at the border in 2018. Well, this is going to be a version of that, but in the interior of the United States, with families that have U.S. citizen children caught up. I mean, kids whose parents get picked up, the kids are going to go into foster care. I mean, it's going to be an absolute nightmare economically and also from a humanitarian perspective, and I think they'll just do as much as they can until someone in the court stops them. That would be my guess.
Well, let me follow up on my final point, which is the economic impact, because we know, for example, in California, those growers count on these immigrants, many of whom are illegal, to pick the berries, to pick the corn, to pick the products that we get at the grocery store every single day. And if they use other workers, if they're able to find them, perhaps at a higher price, there goes the inflation issue. Prices go up.
It will be an utter economic disaster if we round up a significant portion or even a small portion of undocumented people. These are people, most of them have been in the U.S. for a decade or longer. They're married, they have children who are born here, they have jobs here, they have communities who depend upon them, they have businesses who depend upon them, and the result of taking these people out of our economy is going to be absolutely disastrous. And we're all going to feel it. I mean, it will be very, very clear on the other side of these actions, but I see no evidence of the Trump administration slowing down. You know, they made all of these really hardcore-sounding threats during the candidacy, but post-election, with the appointments of people like Stephen Miller and the continued conversation, it doesn't appear as they are dialing back, and I think we can and should anticipate raids and roundups and a severe economic impact that, of course, will impact every single one of us.
And that's what we heard from Tom Homan, who's going to be heading. Borders are making the rounds, including Fox News over the weekend. Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, she is an immigration attorney joining us from the great state of Texas and one of our experts that we turn to from time to time. Kate, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.